Testing 1, 2. All right, so we are live, guys. This is a little bit later than how I typically come on. Usually it's earlier in the morning or in the afternoon, but when inspiration strikes, I strike too. This one is called Prioritizing Priorities. To give you a little bit of background, this came from, as most of my podcasts, they come from actual experiences I have when I'm out in the world with friends or maybe even traveling and having different experiences. I take all these things in, I compile them, I say, what's the lesson to learn here? And then I share it with you. So without further ado, we're going to make it official. Hi, guys. My name is Donnie Rouse, and you are listening to the podcast, One Life. Prioritizing Priorities. You may have heard the saying that says the squeaky wheel gets all the attention. When you look in your life, how many squeaky wheels are there? And a squeaky wheel could be described as a family or loved one who is constantly making demands on your time. Perhaps it's work, it's these extra responsibilities that come at you that may not even be yours. Or they could literally just be the day-to-day to-dos that sometimes eat up your entire day. And all of a sudden, you're at the end of the day and you're like, you know what? I don't have enough energy to do anything. I don't want to do anything. So if that at all sounds like you, if you're saying, where is the time? There's no time for me. This podcast is for you. So what are your priorities? Before we go any further, let's get straight about what exactly our priorities are. Are you prioritizing yourself at all? So when you think about what you're prioritizing, how does it relate? How does it make you feel? So if you're not feeling good after a result of planning your day, or let me start us over a little bit differently. When you're planning your day, how do you plan it? Do you write down a list of to-dos and then go through prioritizing that to-do list? Or do you prioritize your priorities? And when I say prioritizing your priorities, meaning maybe maintaining and improving your health is one of your biggest priorities. Then if that is the case, then you would prioritize making sure that you got to the gym, even if it meant waking up an hour early. So I want you to get real with yourself here, because there's the only way you're going to make any kind of significant change is for you to bring consciousness to what you're prioritizing and to be honest with yourself. So what are you prioritizing? And secondly, how does it make you feel? Like, do you feel drained at the end of your day, or do you feel energized because you know that you made progress in things that matter to you? And then lastly, what if you started to prioritize the things that were important to you, your priorities? This kind of circles back up to the top question, because before you can even start in this process, you must know, what are your priorities? I had recently done an interview with my friend Charlie. He had just come back from doing a year and a half abroad. And during that year and a half, one of his biggest epiphanies was time is your most valuable resource. He realized that he was working in the corporate world and he was literally slaving away, doing the same thing over and over. He loved his friends, he loved his home, but he realized that there was a much bigger world out there for him. And so he wanted to grasp and really control his time and to make the things that he loves his priorities. This past weekend, I was out with one of my friends, my friend Josh, and we were talking about life in general. And he went on to talk to me about going out. So to give you a little bit of backstory, we were supposed to go out the day prior. He had ended up canceling because he got called into work. When we were sitting down having a drink, he was, you know what? I can't really make plans. Everything I do is really, really last minute. It's just how it is, what he said. Now, let me know if you could read between the lines. He says everything is always last minute, that he can't really plan anything. What are you picking up? Is it really that he's incapable of planning something out? I believe that the answer is that he lets all the other demands of life dictate his schedule, and as a result, the only time he has available is when he's not on call or something doesn't come up. Then all of a sudden he's scrambling to figure out Well, what could I do, or what do I want to do? Maybe you could relate to this. So when I was speaking with them, I said, well, if you're not planning, if you're not planning the things that you want to do, then you're always kind of going at what's the easiest thing to do, or not even saying that you have to plan everything, but if you're not setting time aside to say, okay, well, what are my priorities? What do I want to have in my life? What do I want to create? What do I want? How do I want to grow? There's going to be little time for you to do that when you're doing it on the fly. So I told him about a process that I do every year. This year is going to be in January. Every week I'm going to be doing a workshop where it's about prioritizing the experiences that you want in life. And the prioritizing those experiences, okay, well, let's get clear. What is it that we want out of this year? And you don't have to do it at the beginning of the year. You could do it anytime, but here in America, we tend to think that when the new year happens, that is like the time for us to think of new goals, when really we can do it anytime. So it's about getting clear. Well, what is it that I want to experience? What do I want to prioritize? And then at the beginning of the year, blocking it out, right? Because once you have it blocked out, now all of a sudden it's kind of set in stone, right? It's set in stone as long as you could honor your own commitment to yourself. I feel so many people fall short of that, and I'd be silly to say that I don't do that at times as well. So whenever we make a schedule, whenever we block time for ourselves for the things that matter to us, we have to make sure we're doing it in a way that we're going to honor what's important to us. So I was telling them about this whole scheduling process. I said, well, it's how I've created some of the best results that I've had. I think it was in 2019. I did my weightlifting contest was something completely different, but I had built a well in Kenya with the help of all my Rouse Coffee customers. They contributed. We ended up building a well in a small village. It was one of the coolest things. It all came from this planning process about saying up front, what do I want to do this year? How do I want to contribute? What am I going to do for my growth? Where am I going to travel? That was actually a really big one. I make several trips a year at least. So I always, at the very, very least, block out the time as to where and when I'm going to, not so much where I'm going to go, but usually when I'm going to take that trip. Then once I have that blocked out, then I just kind of scramble, and whatever inspiration comes to mind during that time period, that's what I book. So what I'm trying to tell you from all this is that the only way you're going to get the life that you want is for you to place priority on your priorities. There's always going to be someone who's making demands on your time, who wants you to help them with their priorities. And I understand, right? Like this, in the world we live in, you have responsibilities, right? You have responsibilities for work. And maybe in a given week, it might be complicated for you to make certain plans, maybe like doing a weekend trip or going out with friends because your work is very sporadic. But if you plan in advance, it will afford you that flexibility. And if you're still stressed out because you still can't plan in advance, then find something new. Do something different. If you're stressed and you're not enjoying it, find something new. But most of us can look long term and say, okay, well, yeah, I might not be able to go this month or maybe even next month, but I could plan something out for 4 months from now, 5 months from now. And I could wake up an hour earlier to make sure that I get my workouts in. So this way I don't feel sluggish all day and I make better decisions when I go to eat. So what is it? What are your priorities? Let's get clear about what our priorities are. What are your priorities for your health? Is it a priority for you to work out to feel great? Or maybe it's a priority just for you to wake up and sit in the chair and be comfortable in the chair, in which case maybe you want to do some stretches. What are the priorities for your sense of contribution? How do you want to contribute to the world? Is that a priority for you? Or your spirituality? Is it important for you to connect to the God that all that is? I know that's one of the things for me, because when I ground myself at the very beginning of the day, It literally sets the tone for the entire day. Is it a priority for you to travel and see the world? Another big one for me, right? Because when I travel and see the world, I get different perspectives on life. It opens my eyes to that there's more rather than feeling like I am, like sometimes I feel like I'm a robot where I'm just kind of going and consuming and getting out there. I realize that the world is much bigger and that there's so much more to be grateful for, especially when I come back home. Once you know what your priorities, get real with yourself. Say, where am I spending my time? Like, where am I spending my time where it's not serving me or that I feel stressed? Sometimes it's a lack of boundaries or boundaries that you have to reestablish that'll give you that time to prioritize your priorities. Are you taking on things that don't belong to you? Are other people dumping on you and you take it because maybe you want to be the nice person? And then now let's imagine a different world. Imagine a world where you are putting time towards your priorities first. You're filling your own cup up. How do you feel then? Again, this is all assuming that you're keeping the commitment you've made and you're keeping the commitment to yourself, the promise to yourself. Without it, this all goes by the wayside. So I'll recap the questions just so you can do that. And I encourage you to literally just write this out and say, well, what is it that I want out of life? What are my priorities? What is going to give me the feelings, the emotions that I want out of life? So what are your priorities? 2, where are you putting your attention? Where is your time getting up? Is it by your priorities or is it by someone else's priorities? 3rd, how would it feel to prioritize your priorities, to get the things done on your priority list first, the things that you want to do that make you feel good before you start to do everything for everyone else? And then lastly, make the commitment to yourself. Say, literally, if it does help, write it on paper and say, I, Donnie Rouse, state your name, solemnly swear that I will do X and follow through. And I don't know what it is. I've done many workshops, seminars, when there wasn't someone, like when I wasn't in a room, so they were virtual. And whenever I would sign this contract to myself, I felt like I had to follow through. Like I can't turn back. I had made this commitment to myself, so I must do it now. Make the commitment to yourself. You deserve it. Your life deserves it. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe. If you have a question or would like to comment, you can do so by messaging me via my website at www.donnierouse.com. Again, www.donnierouse.com. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, you get one life. Live it. God bless, and I will see you again soon. All right, we are back. I believe I am live. Oh, wow, that was a quick connect. So I'm live again. This one is called Momentum Shift. So I want to, I don't know if not necessarily apology in advance, but I typically don't come on at night because at night I tend to see that my energy starts to wane. I don't drink coffee at night. So I notice that my energy starts to wane. So I'll try to keep it as up and more energetic as I can. But I made myself the commitment. I told myself that I was going to do 3 to 4 episodes here because I had written down all the inspirations. I took the time to mentally think about the experiences I want to share with you so I could come on here today. It's just happening a little bit later than I anticipated, but I'm here, I am committed, and this is your next episode. So without further ado, hi guys, my name is Donnie Rouse, and you are listening to the podcast, One Life, Momentum Shift. Every moment of our day, we have a level of energy. Whether we're conscious of it or not, it tends to fluctuate throughout the day. Usually you have the most energy in the day. Around the afternoon, you start to fall, and then maybe you have to eat something. Maybe you take a mental break and it comes back up, so on and so forth. So this is just a pattern or a rhythm to your day. But how about just in life? when things go good, they tend to constantly feel like they get better, right? And when things get worse, you're like, what the hell's going on? Everything seems to be falling apart. Maybe you have more of the latter more frequently than the upside. And that's okay. What I want you, the intention of this podcast here is just to bring consciousness, is to be aware of what you're feeling when you're feeling it. So this way you can change it. You can't change anything you're not conscious of. So let's get down to it. How do you spend your day? Are you like, where did like the majority of your days go? Are they usually days where you have good momentum and you're feeling like, wow, things are just going good, I'm in that zone? Or do you have days where you wake up and you're like, shit, another day? Where do you fall? And I'm not wronging you if you fall in the latter, because I do that as well. But you have to be conscious of it, so this way you can make the change. And hopefully just from listening to this podcast, it'll just make you aware and non-judgmental of yourself, right? Because once you start judging yourself, forget it. You might as well flush the toilet because you're going down. But just to notice, to not judge, and to be kind to yourself. This past weekend, I went to a Bills vs. Jets game at the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. I gotta admit, I wasn't really excited for the game. I'm not one for football. I thought in the past I would say, it's just a waste of time. I don't mind it as much. After having that experience, I realized that I actually enjoyed a live football game much more than I do on TV, especially since we had great seats. But at the game, I was literally, because I had such a bias, which will lead to other episodes, I had this influx of lessons that was coming in. Part of it comes just from asking a different question. Whenever I'm doing the podcast and I have a focus on it, I'm like, well, what learnings are there in this world for me to take and share? So I'm at the game, and the Bills are playing the Jets, and the Bills are the number one in the division. Kickoff happens. The Jets kicker literally like whiffs the ball, and the Bills get the ball somewhere near like the 50-yard line. So immediately, like all the Bills players are in an uproar, like they're cheering, they're going crazy. Josh Allen throws a great pass. They're so close to a touchdown, and all of a sudden there's a turnover. Jets did a drive. They would get close, fairly far down the field, and then all of a sudden there's another turnover, right? And the entire game, it kept going back and forth, back and forth. When the team had good momentum, when they made a pass, when they scored a touchdown, all of a sudden it lifted the energy of the entire group, and they started to thrive. They started to do better. But then a mistake happens. And all of a sudden, everyone kind of retracts, and all of a sudden, things started to get worse. If you watch the game, you know that the Bills ended up losing to the Jets because they couldn't pull themselves out. I thought about it. I said, well, how similar to that is it to life? You're in this funk, and you're not even sure how to get out of it. You just know that you're there, and it doesn't feel good. That's where rituals come into play to say, well, noticing, well, what is it that I'm feeling, right? If it's angst, all right, I'll give you a different example. I'm here now doing this podcast at, I don't even know what time it is. It's like 9:00 at night, not the opportune time to do a podcast. But during my day, I noticed that I was feeling a little bit off. I was writing out each episode, the learning points, what I wanted to share. But then there was a time where I checked into my energy. I said, well, I need to move. I need to get out of my room. As a result, I ended up taking my notebook because I was committed to at least writing them down. I said, let me just go somewhere where I could be outside, maybe grab a cup of coffee and be around people. So I took it to a local cafe, had an espresso, sat there for 2 hours writing down the episodes that I want to share with you tonight. As a result of making that shift and just being aware of what I needed. Like the guy, when I asked, what do I need? My body told me, get the hell out of your room, go somewhere else and do the work. When I did that, I listened. And as a result, I felt better. I got what I needed to get done, what I committed to myself done. And I'm here now doing it. So what I'm trying to tell you is when your body is speaking, when it's trying to tell you something, listen to it. Right? When you're out of sync, you have to find a way, figure out a way to get into sync. And that comes with having a strategy. What is that strategy? Well, let's start by asking a couple questions. What makes you feel good? Right? What is, when you're feeling bad, what is it that could happen in your day that makes you feel good? Maybe it doesn't even have to be like this, like big thing. Maybe it's like watching an episode of one of your favorite shows, as long as it's not like a 5-hour show and you don't see as it starts jumping through the seasons. But maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's looking at a photo album of people you love, friends, that brings a smile to your face. Maybe it is a food. Just don't overindulge. Maybe, but what is it, right? What makes you feel good? What brings a smile to your face? If you look in the background here, you see there's a little coffee thing. There's anime characters. There's Saint Michael, my patron saint. There's my statue that from working out. If you were to look to my right, you would see my vision board that has all the things that I'm passionate about. When I look at those things, I feel good. I also have a playlist on Spotify. You can check it out too. It's called One Life Music. But whenever I put those things on, it immediately changes my state, or I go for a walk. So it's important to know what makes you feel good, what will change that state. Because you need to break the wave, meaning like you need to, when you're going in a certain direction, you got to cut it off or get ahead of it. So this way you could change it in the direction you want to go. And that direction you want to go is this way you could have more momentum. You could start to feel good. You could, bring joy to whatever it is you're doing, and you start to get more creative. But you have to know, you have to have a strategy in place. So I want you to do that right now. What makes you feel good? Write it down. And then lastly, every morning, or not even a morning, maybe taking your alarm clock, start to set check-in points throughout your day. Every 3 hours, just to check in with yourself to say, how do I feel right now? Where is my focus going? If you notice that you're off and you're not feeling on top of your A game, ask yourself, well, what can I do to get me more aligned, to get me feeling better than where I am right now? We can change our emotion in an instant just by changing our focus, but we've not trained ourselves, or I would say a lot of people haven't trained themselves to be able to do that and to be able to do it well. All it takes is practice. So let's step back a little bit. So what was our intention? Oh, actually, let me name one more thing. So it does help to set an intention at the very, very beginning of your day, to be conscious of what your mental states are. Because by setting an intention, when I say setting an intention, like when I set an intention, I will actually, I'll sit there in prayer. Usually it's right after meditation. And I'll state the intention. So if it's to monitor like my energy throughout the day, to be conscious of my thoughts and where I'm putting my focus, I'll set that intention. I'll hear it in my head and I'll feel it in my heart. And as a result, once I start in that day, all of a sudden now I'm always very, very hypersensitive to whenever I am focusing on something that's not serving me. That it's not magic. It's literally setting the intention opens you up, creates the opportunity for you to see what it is that you're asking for. It's putting your focus. So this way, it's almost like a security system. Like it's going out, it's always looking for an activity that is out of sync with what it was programmed to do. It's the same for setting your intentions. So you set your intention. Secondly, all right, again, let's go back to what makes you feel good. Right now, we're hypersensitive to when we're on and off. You feel like you're off. What makes you feel good? Find some things that are going to keep you on track. They're not going to throw you off, right? If eating a cake makes you feel good, but then you feel lousy afterward, do not eat the cake, right? If a Netflix series makes you feel good, but you have work, don't turn on the Netflix series because you don't want to be stuck there for hours. Find something where you literally can take a moment. A song. Maybe a meditation works extremely well. Some photos, or maybe even just talking to a friend, someone that you love, or putting some thoughts to gratitude to someone who's really important to you. After you've taken time to do that, reevaluate how you feel. Do I feel better? Right? I know with beyond a reason of a doubt, if you take the time to do this, you're going to feel better. And what you bring into your day is going to be a better version of you. So let's make the intention to create momentum that is going to help us fulfill our dreams, to live the life we want to live, a life of passion. I promise it works, and I promise you deserve it. You guys, everyone here, the reason why I'm on this podcast here is because I want everyone to love their life. I want everyone to step out to see the things that are important to them. But it all, again, starts up here. It all starts with that thing between your ears, your mind. Taking control of that before you can take control of anything else in your life. That's all I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe, ask a question or comment via my website at www.donnierouse.com. Again, www.donnierouse.com. That is all I got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Realize you could be putting your attention anywhere, but you're here with me, figuring it out and saying, hey, I know there's more to life, and I'm willing to put in that time, and I bless you guys for being here. Remember, you get one life. Live it. God bless, and I will see you again.